annals of Japanese history, few names ignite the imagination like Sanada Yukimura. Known as Japan's Crimson Demon of War, his legend is etched in blood and bravery. But who was this warrior whose final charge became the stuff of legends? We uncover the extraordinary life of Japanese Yukimura. Few names born Sanada Nobushi, like Sanada, the second son of the cunning daimyo, known as Japan's Crimson Demon of War. Sanada clan legend was small, it was renowned for its strategic brilliance and resilience. Who was this warrior? They navigated the treacherous waters of the Sengoku period with unparalleled skill. Extraordinary survival of Japanese Yukimura. Their adaptability, born Sanada Nobushi, like Sanada, the second son. This was an era of constant warfare, where powerful daimyo vied for the soul. Japan. The political landscape was a complex tapestry navigating alliances and betrayals. Major powers like the Tokugawa and their Danzo dominated every decision, every battle, shaped the destiny of the powerful daimyo by pivotal battle, seeking a heart. The political landscape was a complex tapestry navigating alliances alongside his father, sided with the Western Army, following the Tokugawa victory, they faced a harsh sentence, exile. Their destination was the remote and isolated MT, Koya, and Kudoyama. Years passed in quiet contemplation, but the fires of war still burned. Then came the call. The Toyotomi clan was under siege at Osaka Castle. Yukimura, now a seasoned warrior, dramatically returned to battle. His genius shone through in the construction of the formidable Sanada Maru. This brilliant fortress repelled overwhelming Tokugawa forces. His defensive strategies were a masterclass in military tactics. The winter campaign ended in a truce, but peace was short-lived. The climactic summer campaign saw Yukimura unleash his full fury. Crimson Demon. His bravery was unparalleled, his skill with the spear legendary. He fought with the ferocity of a cornered tiger, inspiring his men to impossible feats. The battlefield was a maelstrom, a testament to his final, desperate stand. Though ultimately defeated, his legacy transcended victory or defeat. Sanada Yukimura is remembered as Japan's greatest warrior, a symbol of unwavering loyalty, courage, and strategic genius. His story continues to inspire generations, a true hero of the Sengoku period. From the cunning strategies of his father to his own crimson charges. Yukimura's life was a testament to the samurai spirit. His name echoes through time, a beacon of defiance and honor. We hope you enjoyed this journey into the life of Sanada Yukimura. There's so much more to discover in the rich tapestry of Japanese history. A name whispered with fear and admiration. Ishikawa Goemon, not just a thief, not just an outlaw, but a symbol of resistance in feudal Japan. A man who dared to challenge the powerful, who turned the shadows into his ally. We uncover the truth about Goemon, the man behind the legend, and how his story still echoes across Japan. Goemon was born into a time of chaos, a period of constant war and shifting allegiances in late 16th century Japan. Records about his early life are scarce, but most historians agree he witnessed the suffering of ordinary people from a young age. Some legends say he was orphaned, forced to survive on the streets, a childhood that taught him resilience, cunning, and stealth. As he grew, Goemon trained in the arts of the ninja, though not in a secret clan like fiction often suggests. Historical sources indicate he learned skills in espionage, infiltration, and evasion, possibly under teachers who served local warlords. These formative years shaped a man who was calculating, fearless, and fiercely independent. Goemon's first acts of rebellion were small, stealing food or valuables from the corrupt and redistributing them to the poor. Over time, his reputation grew. He became more than a petty thief. He was a symbol of defiance against injustice. Most people don't know that Goemon didn't act randomly. He planned every act with precision, observing routines, learning guards' patterns. He exploited weaknesses in even the most heavily protected estates. One famous tale recounts him stealing a priceless incense burner. Unlike other criminals of the time, Goemon was disciplined. He moved quietly, struck swiftly, and avoided unnecessary violence. He focused instead on stealing from those who profited from others' suffering. Some accounts even suggest he left messages to mock his pursuers. Here's what most people don't know. Goemon wasn't just a rogue or a folk hero. He was deeply aware of the political turbulence of Japan. He may have targeted the rich not only out of compassion but as a statement against feudal corruption. Historians debate whether Goemon had connections with local resistance groups, using his skills to support those oppressed by powerful warlords. Another surprising fact, Goemon's legendary rooftop escapes and ninja moves are likely exaggerated over centuries. Contemporary sources suggest he was incredibly clever and adaptable, but not a supernatural ninja. What made him extraordinary was his courage and strategic thinking, not magic. Goemon's boldness eventually led to his capture. Records indicate he was betrayed or cornered by authorities, a common fate for many who challenged the powerful. He was sentenced to be boiled alive, a brutal execution meant to terrify the populace. Legend says he held his young son above the boiling water, saving him from the same fate, though historians debate the exact truth. Even in death, Goemon remained defiant, refusing to let fear define him. What is certain is that his story did not end with his execution. Goemon became immortal in Japanese culture. Kabuki plays celebrated his cunning. Woodblock prints depicted him as a clever, righteous outlaw. Stories painted him as a protector of the oppressed, a man who could strike fear into tyrants while inspiring hope in the powerless. Today, Ishikawa Goemon remains a symbol of courage and resistance. He reminds us that even one person can challenge injustice. That cleverness and courage can leave a mark far beyond their lifetime. Hero, outlaw, or perhaps a bit of both? The truth lies somewhere in between. A man shaped by hardship, defined by daring, remembered as a legend. So the next time you hear the name Goemon whispered, remember, it is the name of a man who dared to challenge the powerful, and whose story still inspires centuries later. A personal space that enemies found almost impossible to penetrate. This mastery of distance is a key reason he avoided so many injuries. While others were locked in close quarters combat, Tadakatsu was dictating the terms of engagement from a position of relative safety. Combined with his heavy armor and the intimidating deer antler helmet, he was a truly formidable sight. By the time he reached his prime, Honda Tadakatsu was recognized as one of the 4 heavenly kings of the Tokugawa clan. Noomasa was known for his Red Devils, a fearsome unit clad entirely in red armor. Sakakibara Yasumasa was a brilliant strategist and administrator. But Tadakatsu was the Rock, the unshakable frontline commander. His reputation was not just a domestic affair. Other powerful warlords knew and respected him. Oda Nobunaga, a man not known for handing out praise lightly, famously said that Tadakatsu was a luxury for Tokugawa Ieyasu. Toyotomi Hideyoshi once pointed to Tadakatsu and declared, "There is the truly brave warrior of the East." They recognized that Tadakatsu was more than just a brute. He was the complete package, a loyal vassal, a brilliant tactician, and an unstoppable force. His presence on the field was a massive morale boost for the Tokugawa army and a source of dread for their enemies. The Battle of Mikitagara in 1573 stands as one of the most defining moments of Honda Tadakatsu's career. Ieyasu, with a force of around 11,000 men, made the rash decision to confront Takeda Shingen, who had over 25,000 veteran soldiers. Shingen, known as the Tiger of Kai, was one of the most brilliant military minds of the age. The battle was a catastrophe for the Tokugawa. Shingen's cavalry tactics shattered their lines, and Ieyasu's army was routed. Ieyasu himself was forced into a desperate retreat back to his castle at Hamamatsu. His life hung by a thread, pursued by relentless Takeda forces. It was in this moment of crisis that Honda Tadakatsu showed his true worth. As the main Tokugawa army fled, Tadakatsu took command of the rearguard. With only a handful of men, he stood his ground against the Takeda advance. He fought with ferocious intensity, creating a bottleneck and slowing the pursuit, buying precious time for his lord to escape. His stand was so fierce and so defiant that it caught the attention of the Takeda generals. They were astonished by the bravery of this lone commander. One Takeda general, so impressed by Tadakatsu's valor, exclaimed, "Tokugawa Ieyasu is a lucky man to have a retainer like that." Tadakatsu's actions at Mikagara were the stuff of legend. He faced certain death, but not only survived, he did so without injury. This single act cemented his reputation as a warrior of almost supernatural ability. But perhaps the most legendary display of Tadakatsu's audacity and skill came years later. At the Battle of Komaki and Natsuki, he faced certain death, but not only survived, he did so without injury. By this time, Oda Nobunaga was dead, and his two most powerful successors, Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Ieyasu, were pursued for a small garrison to guard their main camp at Komaki. Spotting this, Hideyoshi decided to lead a massive army, estimated to be anywhere from 50,000 to 80,000 strong, to crush this exposed position. Honda Tadakatsu, left with a paltry force of only 500 samurai, found himself staring down the entire might of the Toyotomi army. Retreat was not an option, as it would expose Ieyasu's rear. Surrender was unthinkable. So Tadakatsu did the unthinkable. He rode out with his small contingent and positioned himself directly in front of Hideyoshi's massive army just across the Shonai River. He then proceeded to challenge the enemy forces to battle. The Toyotomi generals were stunned. They couldn't believe the arrogance, the sheer nerve of this commander. They vastly outnumbered him, 100 to 1. They could have swarmed over him and annihilated his small force in minutes, but they hesitated. Hideyoshi himself, observing from his command post, was deeply impressed. He recognized Tadakatsu from his reputation. He reportedly said, "This man is a true warrior. To kill him would be a waste." For hours, Tadakatsu and his 500 men held the entire Toyotomi army at bay. This incredible feat of psychological warfare saved the Tokugawa army and became the pinnacle of the Honda Tadakatsu legend. It was a perfect example of his invincibility, not just an immunity to blades, but an aura of command so powerful it could stop an entire army. After decades of relentless warfare, the Sengoku period finally drew to a close with the decisive Battle of Tsukahara in the year 1600. One side was Ishida Mitsunari, loyal to the heir of Toyotomi Hideyoshi, commanding the Western Army. On the other was Tokugawa Ieyasu and the Eastern Army, vying for supreme control. Naturally, Honda Tadakatsu was at the heart of the action. At Sekigahara, Tadakatsu, now a seasoned veteran in his 50s, once again commanded a key division of the Tokugawa forces. Despite the chaos and the sheer scale of the fighting, Tadakatsu moved through the battlefield with his characteristic calm and authority. While many commanders were wounded or killed, Tadakatsu once again emerged unscathed. At one point, his own son, Tadatomo, was engaged in a fierce duel. Tadakatsu rode to his aid, driving off the opponent and ensuring his son's safety. Even in the midst of Japan's most critical battle, his legendary invincibility held true. With Ieyasu's victory at Sekigahara, the Tokugawa shogunate was established, ushering in a long era of peace. As a reward for his unparalleled service and loyalty, Ieyasu granted him the prosperous domain of Kuwano, a fiefdom worth 100,000 koku. In his later years, Tadakatsu retired from military life, passing on his domain to his son Tadatomo. The warrior who had lived his life on the edge of a blade now embraced a life of peace. He became a Buddhist monk, a common path for retired samurai, reflecting on a life spent in conflict. It's said that one day while carving a piece of wood, he accidentally cut his own finger. It was the first time he had ever drawn his own blood with a blade. Looking at the small cut, he reportedly sighed and said, "It seems that even Honda Tadakatsu is now a man of wounds." Honda Tadakatsu passed away peacefully in 1610. At the age of 62, he had lived through the most violent period in Japanese history. And through it all, he never received a single significant wound from an enemy. So what is the legacy of Honda Tadakatsu? He was a man of immense physical strength and skill, a master of his chosen weapon, the Tanbajiri spear, which he used to maintain a safe distance. He was always clad in heavy protective armor. He was a brilliant tactician, able to read the flow of battle and avoid unnecessary risks. And perhaps most importantly, he possessed an incredible psychological presence. His reputation, his confidence, and his sheer audacity were weapons in themselves. He wasn't just a fighter. He was a symbol of strength and reliability for the Tokugawa clan. His story is a powerful reminder that in warfare, victory isn't always about aggression. It's about skill, strategy, and the strength of character to stand firm. The warrior who was never wounded has left an indelible mark on history, a legend of courage and martial perfection that continues to inspire awe centuries later. Kenshin, though impressed, was also deeply unnerved. A man with such skills could be a powerful ally, but also an untraceable assassin. The records state Kenshin believed Danzo's abilities were not human, but the result of sorcery. This fear would follow Danzo. Kenshin, a devoutly religious man, couldn't trust what he couldn't understand. He ordered Danzo to be executed. But how do you kill a ghost? Kato Danzo vanished, slipping through Kenshin's grasp and escaping a death sentence, cementing his reputation as a man beyond ordinary mortals. From the lands of the Wasugi, Danzo traveled south to the domain of another legendary figure, Takeda Shingen, the Tiger of Kai. You would think Shingen, a brilliant and pragmatic strategist, would jump at the chance to employ the man who had so unnerved his enemy. And initially, he did. Shingen was fascinated by Danzo's potential. He hired Danzo not as a frontline warrior, but as an intelligence asset. His mission, to teach espionage and strategy. This is where we get another layer to Danzo's story. He wasn't just a field operative, he was a teacher. He began to train a group of spies for Takeda Shingen, passing on his unique methods. He was essentially helping to build Shingen's intelligence network. One of his students was Kosaka Danjo Masanobu, who would later become one of Takeda Shingen's most famous and trusted 24 generals. This connection is crucial. It suggests Danzo wasn't just a rogue magician, but a respected, if feared, expert in the field of ninjutsu and strategy. However, the old fears resurfaced. The more Takeda Shingen and his retainers witnessed Danzo's abilities, the more they grew suspicious. Was he truly loyal to the Takeda clan? Or was he a double agent, perhaps still in the employ of Wasugi Kenshin, or worse, working for Oda Nobunaga? The chronicles suggest that Shingen's advisors began to whisper in his ear, planting seeds of doubt. They argued that a man who could so easily deceive their enemies could just as easily deceive them. The same skills that made him valuable also made him a terrifying liability. The breaking point came when Shingen started to suspect Danzo of being a double agent. Whether this suspicion was based on solid evidence or paranoia is lost to history. But in the world of the Sengoku period, suspicion was often as good as a death sentence. Takeda Shingen, ever the cautious leader, turned on his mysterious employee. Once again, Kato Danzo was marked for death. And once again, he was pursued by the forces of one of Japan's most powerful warlords. But this time, the Flying Kato couldn't fly far enough. In 1569, the hunt for Kato Danzo came to a brutal end. Takeda's forces, led by a samurai named Tsukiya Masatsugu, finally cornered him. The details of his capture are murky, but the outcome is not. Kato Danzo was executed. The phantom who walked through walls and vanished into thin air was finally brought down by cold, hard steel. But his death is just as mysterious as his life. Why did Takeda Shingen, a man known for his strategic use of shinobi, execute such a valuable asset? The most common theory is the double agent suspicion, but there's another, more intriguing possibility that ties into his reputation as an illusionist. Some historians speculate that Danzo's illusions were becoming too public and too famous, in a world built on rigid social structures and divine authority. A man who could seemingly defy the laws of nature was a threat to the established order. His magic could inspire awe, but it could also inspire rebellion. He was a wild card and an unpredictable force, and for a control-obsessed leader like Takeda Shingen, that was something that had to be eliminated. So let's talk about his most famous illusions. The bull swallowing trick. This is perhaps his most legendary feat. It's said that in front of a crowd, Danzo would make a full-grown bull disappear, seemingly swallowing it whole. How on earth could this be possible? Well, it almost certainly wasn't literal. This was likely a masterful piece of stage magic. Think about it. He would perform in a controlled environment. He could have used large, cleverly placed screens, mirrors, or trapdoors. The bull might have been led behind a screen and through misdirection. Audience manipulation and a hidden escape route for the animal, it would appear to vanish. He might have used smoke to obscure the audience's view. The swallowing gesture would have been pure showmanship, the act that cemented the trick in the minds of the witnesses and turned a clever illusion into sorcery. Then there's the seed sprouting illusion. Danzo would allegedly plant a seed, and in moments it would sprout, grow, flower, and even bear fruit. Again, this sounds like pure fantasy. But let's break it down from the perspective of a master illusionist. This is a classic magic trick. It's all about sleight of hand and prepared props. He likely had pre-sprouted plants and flowers hidden up his voluminous sleeves or in secret compartments. As he gestured and distracted the audience with his patter, he would skillfully swap the seed for a sprout, then the sprout for a small plant, and so on, culminating in the magical appearance of a fully grown flowering plant. To an audience in 16th century Japan, this would be indistinguishable from real magic. These illusions were his calling card, but they were also his curse. They made him famous, but they also made him a target. He was a man out of time, a performer whose art was too advanced, too strange for the era he lived in. His skills in espionage were real, but it was his public persona as a magician that ultimately sealed his fate. And this brings us to a crucial point about how we understand history. The story of Kato Danzo is preserved in several historical chronicles, like the Koyo Gunken, a record of the Takeda clan's military exploits, and various accounts from the Uesugi side. However, these documents weren't just dry reports of facts. They were often written with a specific agenda, sometimes to glorify a clan, justify an action, or even to entertain. The writers may have embellished the stories of Danzo's powers to make their lords seem more formidable for having confronted such a supernatural foe. So, who was the real Kato Danzo? Was he a sorcerer? Unlikely a ninja? Yes, but not in the way we often imagine. He was a kancho, a spy, and an expert in psychological warfare. But most of all, he was a brilliant and innovative illusionist, a performance artist whose stage was the battlefield and the courts of powerful daimyo. He used the perception of magic as his ultimate weapon. When you believe your enemy can fly, swallow bulls, and disappear at will, you are already defeated psychologically. Your guards are more nervous, your strategies are second-guessed, and fear becomes your true enemy. Danzo understood this better than anyone. He wasn't just gathering information. He was manipulating the minds of his targets. His life was short and his end was violent, but his legend endured. He became a cautionary tale for the powerful. Beware the man who commands not soldiers, but shadows and perceptions. He also became a folk hero, a symbol of the individual who could outwit the most powerful men. His story was retold in kabuki plays, woodblock prints, and novels, with each retelling adding another layer of myth and magic. The Flying Kato of legend was born from the smoke of the real Kato Danzo's illusions. What's truly fascinating is that even after his death, his influence may have lived on. Remember Kasaka Danjo, his supposed student? He became a key figure in Takeda's intelligence operations. It's plausible that the methods and psychological tricks taught by Kato Danzo were integrated into the Takeda clan's school of espionage, the Kofuru Ninjutsu. So, in a way, even though Shingen had Danzo executed, his knowledge and techniques may have continued to serve the Takeda clan for years to come. The ghost of Kato Danzo may have haunted the battlefields long after the man himself was gone. In the end, Kato Danzo's story is a perfect example of how history and legend intertwine. He was a real person, a skilled spy in a time of war. But his true genius lay in his ability to create his own myth. He wrapped his real skills in a cloak of the supernatural, making himself larger than life. more terrifying and ultimately unforgettable. He couldn't really fly, but he made the most powerful men in Japan believe he could. And in the 16th century, that was a power far greater than any sword or spear. He mastered the art of perception, proving that sometimes the most effective weapon is the one that exists only in the mind of your enemy. He was a true phantom of the Sengoku period, and his story reminds us that history is not just about what happened, but also about what people believed happened. The line between fact and folklore is often as thin as a puff of smoke from a magician's hand. The end had come. They asked each other, "What is your final wish?" They all wished to be reborn 7 times, so they could continue to serve the emperor and destroy his enemies. This final pledge of loyalty was Shichisho Hokaku, serving the nation through 7 lives. With this, they took their own lives. Kusunoki was just 42 years old. His death was a tragedy, the end of a brilliant military career, all for a battle he knew he couldn't win. So the story seems clear, right? A loyal samurai follows his lord's foolish command to his death. This is the version told for centuries why he became a national hero. But here's where things get complicated. Remember the Taiheki, the chronicle giving us these dramatic details? It's not a straightforward historical document. It's a literary epic, written decades after the events, filled with heroic speeches and dramatic scenes. Many historians believe it promoted a political agenda, more like historical fiction. How much is true? How much invention? Did he propose that strategy? Did the emperor reject it? Did Kusunoki and his brother have that poetic exchange? This is the great unknown. Few contemporary sources describe these events in such detail. Scholars argue the story of Kusunoki's advice and the emperor's rejection might have been invented. It makes the emperor look foolish, but Kusunoki a tragic, brilliant hero betrayed by incompetence. A perfect narrative. A 7 lives pledge might be a later addition to emphasize supernatural loyalty. What we know for sure is he fought and died for the emperor at Menatagawa. The why and how are filtered through a masterful storyteller. The historical Kusunoki might have been pragmatic. Perhaps he didn't see it as noble sacrifice, but the only honorable path for a warrior cornered by his enemy. The real man's thoughts are lost to time, replaced by a powerful and enduring legend. The defeat at Minatogawa was a disaster for the imperial cause. With Kusunoki gone, Go-Daigo lost his commander. He was forced to flee Kyoto, and Ashikaga Tekafuji installed a rival emperor, establishing his shogunate. This led to the Nanboku-cho period, the age of the northern and southern courts vying for legitimacy. Kusunoki's family, led by his son Mazatsura, continued to fight for Go-Daigo's southern court. They fought bravely for years, but the tide of history was against them. The southern court's cause faded. The Ashikaga shogunate solidified its control. For a time, Kusunoki's sacrifice seemed in vain. His side had lost the war. For centuries, Kusunoki was respected but controversial. He was a tragic hero, but also an enemy of the court by the victorious northern court and Ashikaga shogunate. His story was kept alive through the Taiheki, but he wasn't the national icon he would later become. That changed during the Edo period, a time of peace under the Tokugawa shogunate. Neo-Confucian scholars, reinforcing social order, latched onto Kusunoki's story. For them, his absolute loyalty to the emperor, even a flawed one, was the ultimate virtue. He became the perfect example of a vassal's duty to his lord. Thinkers like Yamaga Soko elevated him. He was no longer just a warrior. He was a moral paragon, the embodiment of righteousness and selfless devotion. This veneration reached its peak during the Meiji Restoration in the late 19th century. The new government needed national symbols to unify the country around the restored Emperor Meiji. Kusunoki Masashige was the perfect candidate. His story of unwavering loyalty was the message they wanted. He was posthumously pardoned and elevated to the highest ranks, becoming a kami, a god, in state Shinto. Shrines were built, most famously Minatogawa Shrine. His story was taught to every schoolchild. Shichisho Hokaku became a powerful rallying cry, especially for the military. The image of Kusunoki bidding farewell to his son became one of the most famous scenes, used to promote sacrifice and patriotism. But here, the true man gets completely lost. The Meiji government and later militarists stripped away all nuance from his story. They didn't care about his brilliant guerrilla tactics or his potential identity as an Akudo. They needed a simple, powerful symbol, a man who obeyed without question, who sacrificed himself. This version of Kusunoki, the one-dimensional symbol of blind loyalty, was used to justify militarism. Kamikaze pilots saw themselves as modern-day Kusunokis. The symbol of loyalty had been twisted. After the war, Kusunoki's status became complicated. His story was seen as part of a militaristic ideology. For a while, his name was almost taboo. But as Japan rebuilt, a more balanced view emerged. People looked past propaganda, rediscovering the man, brilliant strategist, underdog, loving father, and the man of principle trapped in an impossible situation. Today, he's remembered in a nuanced way. The bronze statue outside the Imperial Palace in Tokyo is iconic. It represents integrity, cleverness, and the tragic conflict between duty and reason, a man who chose honor as he understood it. So, who was the real Kusunoki Masachige? The perfect, loyal samurai? Or pragmatic guerrilla leader? The truth, as it often does, probably lies somewhere in between. What's undeniable is his military genius. His tactics were centuries ahead of their time. He understood intelligence, logistics, psychological warfare. He was an innovator, a master of asymmetric warfare. But it is his loyalty that has defined him. It's the story of his final, tragic choice that has captured the imagination for nearly 700 years. Perhaps the most fascinating fact isn't about his battles, but how his legacy was shaped and reshaped. His story shows us how history is written by victors, but also rewritten by later generations. He has been a rebel, a tragic hero, a Confucian saint, a nationalist god, and a symbol of militarism. Each era created its own Kusunoki, reflecting its values. The search for the real man continues. Buried under layers of legend, literature, and propaganda, heroes are often more complex than we think. The line between history and myth can be very thin. The symbol of loyalty is also how we use the past. Kusunoki Masachige remains an enigma, a historical figure whose true personality is forever obscured by legend. But that's what makes him so compelling. He wasn't just a character. He was a real person who faced an impossible choice and met his end with resolve that has inspired generations. Whether you see him as a strategist, tragic hero, or symbol of loyalty, his story is profound. A look into the heart of the samurai spirit and the turbulent age he lived in. And it leaves us with a haunting question. What would you do if duty conflicted with reason? It's a question that Kusunoki answered with his life. To explore a new concept, a revolutionary idea for a warrior of his time, the art of not fighting. He called it Mutekatsu Ryo, which translates to the school of winning without hands, or more poetically, the style of victory without a sword. This wasn't about cowardice, it was the opposite. It was about a level of mastery so profound that the sword itself became unnecessary. Bokuden realized true victory wasn't about cutting down your opponent. It was about transcending the conflict itself. It was about understanding your opponent so completely, controlling the situation so perfectly, that the fight was over before it even began. This is the heart of the mystery we're exploring. How did he do it? How did a man who lived by the sword learn to conquer without it? Let's dive into the most famous and perhaps most revealing story about Bokuden's no-sword philosophy. It's a tale that has been told for centuries, and it perfectly illustrates his genius. One day, Bokuden was traveling on a ferry across Lake Biwa, Japan's largest lake. He was older now, his reputation preceding him wherever he went. He was dressed simply, trying not to draw attention, but on the crowded boat was a young, arrogant samurai. This samurai was loud, boastful, and waving his sword around, declaring himself the greatest swordsman. He noticed the quiet, unassuming Bokuden, who carried his two swords wrapped in cloth. A sign of a true practitioner. The arrogant samurai, seeing an easy target, began to mock Bokuden. "Hey, old man, what school do you belong to?" he sneered.
Bokuden remained calm and simply replied,
"My school is the school of winning without a sword." The young samurai burst into laughter. "Winning without a sword? What kind of nonsense is that? You're just a coward who's afraid to draw his blade." The other passengers grew nervous. A duel on a crowded, rocking boat would be a disaster. The young samurai, his pride stung, insisted on a duel right then and there. Bokuden sighed, looking not at the samurai, but at the scenery around them. "A duel here would be dangerous for the others," he said calmly. "And your technique is about showing off. To truly test our skills, we need a better place. Let us row to that small island over there. There we can fight without interruption." The arrogant samurai, blinded by his ego, readily agreed. He was convinced the old man was just trying to delay his demise. He ordered the ferrymen to row to the deserted island. As they approached the shore, the young samurai, eager for his moment of glory, leaped from the boat and drew his katana, striking a dramatic pose on the beach. "Come on, old man. I see that no sword style of yours," he yelled. Bokuden stood up slowly in the boat, but instead of drawing his sword or jumping ashore, he did something completely unexpected. He picked up the ferryman's long wooden pole, pushed the boat hard away from the island, and began to glide back out into the open water. The young samurai stood there, stunned, his sword drawn and ready for a fight that would never happen. "Hey, where are you going, you coward?" he screamed from the island. Bokuden, now a safe distance away, simply smiled and called back, "This is my school of winning without a sword." He had won the duel completely. He defeated his opponent's aggression, his ego, and his intention to fight. All without ever laying a hand on him or drawing his blade. He left the samurai stranded on the island, not physically harmed, but utterly defeated and humiliated, left alone with his own foolishness. This story is more than just a clever anecdote. It's a masterclass in strategy and psychology. Bokuden didn't just avoid a fight. He controlled the entire situation from start to finish. He understood the young samurai's psychology, his arrogance, his need for an audience, his rashness. He used that arrogance against him. He controlled the environment by suggesting the island. He used the samurai's own eagerness to his advantage. The victory was mental and strategic, a display of a level of mastery that went far beyond mere physical skill. But here is where the deeper mystery begins. How does one even learn this? The Kashima Shinto Ryo he mastered is a combat-focused art. It teaches you how to win a fight with a sword. It doesn't have a chapter on how to trick your opponent onto an island. So where did this philosophy come from? The historical records are surprisingly silent on this.
This wasn't something he learned in a dojo. This was a personal revelation, a spiritual awakening.
Some historians believe Bokuden was deeply influenced by Zen Buddhism, which was gaining prominence. Among the warrior class at the time, Zen teaches the importance of mindfulness, of understanding the nature of the self and the universe, and of achieving a state of no mind or mushin. This is a state of pure awareness, where one acts spontaneously and perfectly without conscious thought or emotion. In this state, a swordsman doesn't think, "I must block this cut." He simply moves and blocks, as naturally as breathing. Could Bokuden have reached such a profound level of mushin that he could perceive an opponent's intent before they even acted? Could he see the spirit of the confrontation and dismantle it before it manifested physically? This is the true silent sword. It's the sword of the mind, a weapon of pure perception. When you can see the outcome of a battle before it starts, the physical act of fighting becomes redundant. You've already won. Think about the sheer confidence this requires. To face a man with a drawn sword, knowing you could defeat him with your own blade, but choosing instead to rely entirely on your wits and your understanding of the human spirit. That is a level of courage far greater than simply charging into battle. It's the courage to trust your inner wisdom over your physical training. But let's explore another possibility, one that's even more mysterious. There are legends, whispers really, that during his travels, Bokuden didn't just fight other swordsmen. He sought out mountain ascetics, Shinto priests, and mystics.
Is it possible that he learned techniques that were not part of any formal martial art?
Techniques of influencing the mind, of projecting an aura of calm or authority so powerful that it could pacify an aggressor. In Japanese folklore, there are concepts like kai, the spiritual shout, which isn't just a loud noise, but a projection of one's spirit. That can momentarily stun or disorient an opponent. Could Bokuden have mastered a silent form of kai? An overwhelming presence that simply communicated on a primal level, "Do not fight me. You cannot win." This would explain how he could de-escalate situations with seemingly simple words or gestures. His opponents wouldn't be reacting to the man, but to the immense spiritual pressure he was exerting. Consider another encounter. A ruffian, aware of Bokuden's fame, tried to ambush him on a narrow road. As the man charged, Bokuden didn't draw his sword. He simply stepped aside. And as the man stumbled past, Bokuden lightly tapped him on the back with his sheathed sword. The man fell not from the force of the blow, but from the shock of his own failed attack. And the sheer anticlimax of the encounter, Bokuden just kept walking. The fight was over. He didn't need to prove his superiority by injuring or killing the man. His mastery was so complete that he could resolve the conflict with the minimum necessary action. This is the true peak of martial arts. It's a journey that starts with learning how to fight, then progresses to learning how to win, and finally culminates in learning how not to fight at all. Bokuden's life shows us this entire path. He climbed the mountain of skill, stood at its summit, and saw that beyond it lay an even greater peak, the mountain of wisdom. So, was Tsukahara Bokuden a Zen master, a mystic, or simply a brilliant psychologist and strategist? Who was centuries ahead of his time? The truth is, he was likely all of these things. He wasn't just a swordsman. He was a complete martial artist. He understood that a real fight isn't just about technique. It's about psychology, environment, timing, and spirit. The sword is just one tool, and often not the most effective one. His legacy is not just in the duels he won, but in the conflicts he avoided. In a violent age, he taught that the greatest strength is restraint. The greatest victory is the one that preserves life rather than takes it. He was a teacher to shoguns and powerful lords, and what he taught them was not just how to wield a sword, but how to wield power with wisdom and compassion. The mystery of his no-sword style isn't about some secret magical technique. It's about a fundamental shift in perspective. It's the realization that the goal of a martial artist isn't to be a better fighter, but to be a better human being. To cultivate a spirit so calm and clear that it can pacify the violence in others and in oneself. Tsukahara Bokuden laid down his sword long before his death at the ripe old age of 82, an almost unheard of lifespan for a swordsman of his era. He proved that the path of the sword did not have to end in blood. His ultimate teaching is a paradox. To truly master the sword, you must be willing to leave it in its sheath. His silence was his ultimate weapon, and his greatest victories were the ones no one ever saw. The mystery isn't how he won without a sword. The mystery is how many of us, in our own lives, can learn to do the same. In the shadow-drenched annals of Japan's Sengoku period, where warlords clashed and empires rose and fell, some warriors fought not on the battlefield, but in the darkness. Among them, one name echoes through time, wrapped in mist and enigma. Kirigakure Saizō, the ghost of the hidden mist. But was he a master of espionage, a loyal hero, or a complete fabrication? The truth is far stranger than the legend. Let's delve into the fog and see what we can find. History tells us of the Sanada 10 Braves, a group of elite warriors, almost like a special forces unit, serving the powerful Sanada clan. Saizō is often named their second-in-command, a master of Igarayo ninjutsu, a phantom who could seemingly vanish into thin air. Folklore and popular culture paint him as a peerless assassin, a cool, collected counterbalance to his fiery friend and rival, the equally famous Sarutobi Sasuke. He was the silent dagger in the night, the whisper that toppled castles. a shadow that moved without a sound.
He was the quintessential ninja, an embodiment of the art of stealth and deception. The stories depict him as a handsome, intelligent, and sometimes cynical warrior whose skills were so great they bordered on the magical. He could conjure illusions, walk on water, and disappear in a puff of smoke. This is the Saizō of legend, the hero every kid wanted to be. But then, we peel back the layers of legend and the story fractures. The gleaming image of the perfect warrior begins to crack. When we turn from folklore to the more sober pages of historical records, the picture changes dramatically. Some historical accounts do mention a ninja named Kirigakure, but not as a celebrated hero. These records speak of an attempt to assassinate the great unifier of Japan, Toyotomi Hideyoshi. This Kirigakure, a ninja in the service of the warlord Date Masamune, was sent to eliminate Hideyoshi. The plan was simple: sneak under the floorboards of the Urakudai Palace where Hideyoshi was staying and strike from below. The execution, however, was anything but legendary. The attempt was clumsy, a spear thrust upwards through the floorboards that missed its mark entirely. The commotion alerted the guards, and this ninja was quickly discovered and captured. The official record, the Teikoki, dismisses him as a careless ninja. So, is this our legendary Saizō? A master of his craft reduced to a bumbling amateur? How could the second-in-command of the Sanada Braves, a man whose name means hidden mist, be so easily caught after such a sloppy attempt? The contradiction is staggering. It's like finding out a modern-day spy was caught because he tripped over his own shoelaces. It just doesn't fit the narrative we've been told. And here, the story takes a bizarre, fascinating turn. One alternate account, a footnote in history that could change everything, suggests that Saizō's capture was no failure at all. This theory proposes that the entire assassination attempt was a deliberate, calculated failure. By being so conspicuously careless in getting caught, Saizō inadvertently exposed a true, much more subtle assassination plot being orchestrated by a double agent within Hideyoshi's own ranks. This other agent, believing the danger had passed with Saizō's capture, became complacent and was himself exposed. Was his carelessness a calculated act of self-sacrifice? A feint within a feint, a move so complex that history mistook genius for incompetence? According to this version of events, Toyotomi Hideyoshi, a man known for his sharp intellect, recognized the deeper game being played. He saw the brilliance behind the apparent failure. Impressed by this ninja's incredible loyalty and strategic mind, Hideyoshi spared his life, but freedom came with a price. Saizō was spared on the condition that he swear loyalty to the very man he was sent to kill. A ghost, once sworn to the Date clan, now chained to a new master, the most powerful man in Japan. He became a double agent, his loyalties now a tangled web of duty and deception. For years, he served the Toyotomi clan, his past shrouded, his true allegiance a constant question. Did he truly serve Hideyoshi with a converted heart, or was he a sleeper agent, patiently waiting for the perfect moment to complete his original mission? The chronicles are frustratingly silent on this matter. He moves through the most critical moments of the era, the political intrigues, the grand campaigns, the secret negotiations, like a ghost at the feast. His presence felt but never truly seen. He is a paradox, a recorded failure in one book, a celebrated hero in another, and a master strategist in a third. He exists in the margins of history, his actions open to a dozen different interpretations. Was he playing a long game so intricate that no one, not even his own masters, knew his true objective? This duality is what makes Saizō so compelling. He represents the very essence of the ninja, a figure whose reality is deliberately obscured. His identity is a weapon. The folklore gives us the idealized warrior, the perfect hero. The historical records give us the flawed human, the failed assassin. And the theories give us the master manipulator, the grand chess master playing a game no one else understood. All these versions exist simultaneously, creating a composite character who is more myth than man. He is the ultimate unknown, a variable in the equation of history that we can never solve. His story wasn't just about fighting battles. It was about controlling information, about shaping perception itself. So who was Kirigakure Saizō? Was he the peerless warrior of folklore, capable of superhuman feats? Was he the bumbling assassin of the official record, a cautionary tale of incompetence? Or was he the master strategist whose true victory was so brilliantly disguised as defeat that it fooled even the historians? Perhaps the answer lies not in a single truth, but in the mist itself. Saizō's greatest trick wasn't disappearing into the fog, but becoming it an enigma, a question mark, a legend that history can never fully grasp. And in the end, this ambiguity leaves us with one lingering, unanswerable question. How do you catch a ghost who may have never existed at all? In ancient China, a saying captured the essence of ultimate power. Among men, Lu. Among horses, red hair. He was the most feared warrior of the Three Kingdoms era, a man whose skill in battle was so immense it was considered almost supernatural. The legend paints him as an unstoppable force of nature. Yet, this same warrior, the strongest in all of China, would die betrayed and alone, his life ending not in a blaze of glory, but in disgrace. The real story of Lu is far darker and far more mysterious than the legends let on. Very little is known for certain about Lu's early life. We know he was born somewhere in northern China, in what is now Inner Mongolia, and from a young age, he became famous for two things: his unmatched physical strength and his incredible skill in archery, even from horseback. Ancient historical records, like the records of the Three Kingdoms, describe him as an incredibly powerful cavalry warrior, a master of the halberd, and possessing an almost otherworldly talent on the battlefield. He was the kind of fighter who could turn the tide of a battle single-handedly. His career began in the service of a minor warlord and provincial inspector named Ding Yuan. Ding Yuan valued Lu Bu immensely, treating him with favor and considering him a close subordinate. In a time of shifting alliances and constant warfare, this relationship should have been the foundation of Lu Bu's career. But this loyalty, like so many of Lu Bu's allegiances, would not last. Soon, he would commit the first of many shocking betrayals that would come to define his legacy. The opportunity came from the powerful and tyrannical warlord Dongzhuo, who had seized control of the imperial capital and the young Han Emperor. Dongzhuo saw the immense value in having a warrior like Lu Bu on his side. He secretly approached Lu Bu, enticing him to turn on his master. Historical sources suggest a combination of bribery, including the legendary horse. Red hair and political manipulation were at play. Dongzhuo promised Lu power, wealth, and status far beyond what Ding Yuan could offer. Lured by these promises, Lu Bu assassinated Ding Yuan and defected to Dongzhuo, who then adopted him as a son. This moment is one of the most debated in Lu Bu's history. Was he simply a heartless traitor, driven by greed and ambition? Or was he a pragmatic warrior trying to survive and climb the ranks in a brutal, chaotic age where loyalty was a luxury few could afford? The famous historical novel, Romance of the Three Kingdoms, adds another layer to this story. It introduces the beautiful Daokan, one of the four great beauties of ancient China, who was used as a political pawn to drive a wedge between the increasingly paranoid Dongzhuo and his powerful adopted son. While Daokan's story is likely fictional, it captures the essence of the turmoil surrounding Lu Bu. Under his new lord Dongzhuo, Lu Bu's legend reached its absolute peak. He became Dongzhuo's personal bodyguard and his greatest general. He was the warrior no one could defeat. His reputation on the battlefield was so terrifying that some opposing generals would reportedly refuse to engage him in direct combat. His skill with his signature weapon, the ji, or halberd, became the stuff of legend. It was during this time that one of the most famous, albeit fictional, tales from the novel Romance of the Three Kingdoms takes place, the Battle of Hulao Pass. In this epic scene, Lu Bu single-handedly fights off three of the era's greatest heroes at once, Liu Bei, Guan Yu, and Zhang Fei. Even though they were three against one, they could not defeat him. Whether this event happened or not, it shows how even his enemies had to acknowledge and respect his incredible power.
He was, without a doubt, the most dominant martial force of his time. But this unstoppable force of a man had a dark, fatal flaw. For all his strength in battle, Lo Bu was an incredibly poor strategist and leader. He was impulsive, arrogant, and constantly betrayed his allies. After his initial betrayal of Ding Yuan, he would go on to betray Dong Zhuo as well, assassinating his own adoptive father over a dispute. This act, while it ridded the land of a tyrant, branded Lo Bu as a kinslayer and a man utterly without honor. He then wandered across the fractured landscape of China, briefly serving various warlords like Yuan Shao and Yuan Shu. But each alliance ended in mistrust and conflict. He struggled to maintain loyalty from his own men, and other commanders saw him as a dangerous and untrustworthy opportunist. Even the cunning and powerful warlord Cao Cao, who was known for recruiting talented men regardless of their past, viewed El Bu as a wild animal to be managed, not a subordinate to be trusted. At one point, El Bu managed to seize his own territory from the warlord Liu Bei, establishing a brief period where he was a power in his own right. But he couldn't hold it. How could the strongest warrior in China fail so completely at building a lasting kingdom? The answer lies in his terrible leadership and the web of deep mistrust he had spun around himself. No one believed his word, and no one would truly risk their future for him. His spectacular downfall came at the Battle of Siapi in the year 198. Surrounded by the combined forces of his enemies, led by Cao Cao and Liu Bei, Lu Bu found himself trapped in the city. The siege lasted for months. As supplies dwindled and morale plummeted, Lu Bu's own men began to lose faith. In the final, bitter irony of his life, Lu Bu, the great betrayer, was betrayed himself. His own officers, Hu Cheng, Song Xian, and Wei Su, mutinied. They captured the sleeping Lu Bu, tied him up, and surrendered the city gates, handing him over to Cao Cao. Brought before his rival, Lu Bu made one last desperate plea for his life. He tried to persuade Cao Cao to spare him, offering his unmatched services as a general. He boasted, "If I lead your cavalry, Lord, you will have no trouble conquering all under heaven." Cao Cao was momentarily tempted. Having the greatest warrior in the land under his command was an appealing thought, but his trusted advisor, Liu Bei, who was also present, reminded him of Lu Bu's history. He simply said, "Have you forgotten what happened to Ding Yuan and Dong Zhuo?" The message was clear. This man has betrayed everyone he ever served. He cannot be trusted. Hearing this, Cao Cao made his decision. Lo Bu, the flying general, was executed by hanging in the year 199. The strongest warrior in China died not in glorious combat, not on the battlefield where he was unmatched, but captured, bound, and abandoned by his own men. For centuries afterward, people would remember Lo Bu, but they remembered him not for loyalty, honor, or leadership, but for his raw, unmatched, and terrifying strength. His legend, of course, survives to this day, immortalized in the novel romance of the Three Kingdoms, in countless video games, movies, and in Chinese folklore, where he remains the ultimate symbol of martial prowess. In the end, Al Bu may have been the most powerful warrior of his time, but his story is a cautionary tale. It shows that power alone, physical strength, and fighting skill was not enough to change history or build a legacy. He possessed all the might a warrior could ever want, but he lacked the one thing that truly builds empires and commands loyalty: trust. And maybe that's why his story still fascinates us so much today. Because behind the legend of the invincible god of war, there was a deeply flawed man who had everything, and yet, because of his own choices, ended up with nothing. But he lacked the one thing. What if the most loyal warrior in Japanese history was born a monster? We think of heroes as born from light, but some of the greatest legends are forged in darkness. We uncover the story of Benkei, the giant warrior monk. But this isn't the story, you know. This is a tale of a demon child, a cursed quest, and a death so unbelievable it defies reality itself. We're going deeper than ever before into the mysteries that even history is afraid to tell. The legend begins not with a celebrated birth, but a horrifying one. A child born after an 18-month pregnancy with a full head of hair, long teeth, and the strength of a grown man.
His own father, a temple steward, was so horrified he tried to abandon the child, believing him to be a demon. This was the boy named Oniwaka, the demon child. But he was saved by an aunt who saw not a monster, but a lonely child. In her care, Oniwaka grew. And grew. His strength was unnatural. As a boy, he played war games that terrified adults. But beneath the monstrous power was a profound loneliness. Was he truly a monster, or just an outcast soul trapped in a giant's body? This question would haunt him forever. He was sent to the monastery at Mount Hiei, a place of peace and prayer. But how can a storm be contained in a teacup? The quiet life of a monk couldn't chain the giant's spirit. He was a force of nature, his behavior too wild, too strong, too much for the sacred halls. He was expelled, cast out once again. It was here, alone and rejected by both the mortal and spiritual worlds, that Benkei's true legend would be forged. Before he became a collector of swords, Benkei was a collector of insults. One story tells of a deep grudge he held against the monks of the Maidera temple. To display his unmatched power and contempt, he set his sights on their most prized possession, their sacred multi-ton bronze bell. In an impossible feat of strength, Benkei single-handedly detached the giant bell and dragged it all the way up the mountain to his own monastery. But when he tried to ring his new prize, a horrifying thing happened. The bell didn't produce a clear, holy sound and let out a deep, mournful groan. The monks who heard it swore it was crying out the words, "I want to go back. I want to go back to Maidera." The holy object itself was rejecting it. Enraged, Benkei kicked the bell, sending it rolling, and crashing all the way back down the mountain to the very temple he stole it from. What does this mean? Was the bell itself alive, or was this a sign from the heavens? A warning that no matter how he tried, the demon child could never truly be holy. Was he cursed? Now a rogue warrior, Benkei made a new chilling vow. He took up residence on the Gojo Bridge in Kyoto, a strategic crossing point. He would challenge every single warrior who dared to cross and, upon defeating them, claim their sword. His goal, to collect 1,000 blades. But this was no simple mugging. Benkei was a master of 7 weapons, and his quest was a strange and violent pilgrimage. Was he searching for a blade worthy of his own strength? Was he seeking redemption through 1,000 battles? Or was he, as some whispered, a collector of souls, trapping the spirit of each defeated warrior in their steel? He gathered 999 swords. His name was a legend, whispered in fear and awe across the capital. No one could defeat the giant of Gojo Bridge. Then, one night, his 1,000th victim appeared, but it was not a fearsome warrior. It was a small, almost delicate figure, playing a flute as he crossed the bridge, seemingly without a care in the world. This was Minamoto no Yoshitsune, a young, exiled nobleman of the powerful Minamoto clan. Benkei, seeing an easy final prize, attacked. What happened next was impossible. The young man was a leaf on the wind, a ghost in the moonlight. He was impossibly fast. Dodging the giant's every powerful blow was nothing but a war fan. For the first time in his life, after 999 victories, Benkei was utterly defeated. Humbled, shocked, and in awe of Yoshitsune's divine skill, the giant warrior dropped to his knees. On that very bridge, the demon pledged his life to the young lord. The collector of swords had finally found his master. Benkei became Yoshitsune's shadow, his most loyal retainer and a key general in the Great Genpei War. Together, they were an unstoppable force. At the legendary naval battle of Den no Ura, where the fate of Japan was decided, Benkei was more than a bodyguard. He was a weapon. Witnesses claimed he used a ship's anchor as a flail, clearing entire enemy decks with each swing. His roar was said to be louder than the war drums. But victory breeds jealousy. Yoshitsune's brilliant tactics and rising fame earned him the hatred of his own brother, the new shogun Yoritomo. Declared a traitor, Yoshitsune was now a fugitive, hunted by the very men he had led to victory. And Benkei, his loyal demon, stayed by his side. This is where the story turns from history to myth. To escape their enemies, Benkei disguised himself as a master and Yoshitsune as a follower. At a guarded checkpoint,
කියලා කිව්වට මටවත් තේරුන්නේ නැහැ කොහොමද ස්පයිඩර්මෑන් වෙන්නේ කියලා. ඒ හින්දා ඉතින් මං ස්පයිඩර්මෑන් කියලා ඔප්පු කරන්න මම මටම චැලෙන්ජස් තුනක් දී ගත්තා. මුලින්ම ඉතින් මං කරේ දැම්මට ස්පයිඩර්මෑන් වගේ මත් දාගත්තා.
Benkei did the unthinkable. He flew into a rage, screaming at
අපි
his
දැන් අපේ පළවෙනි challenge එක කරමු. අපේ ඉතින් පළවෙනි challenge එක තමයි
he began to beat his own master with a heavy staff.
එක.
The guards watched, stunned. No loyal retainer, no man in feudal Japan would ever dare to strike his lord. It was the ultimate crime, the ultimate dishonor. Convinced by this shocking display of disloyalty, they let the party pass. Think about that moment, the psychological torment. To save his master, Benkei had to publicly perform the most disloyal act imaginable. Was this a calculated act of brilliant theater? Or a moment where Benkei had to become a monster once more to save the man he served? Their freedom was short-lived. Finally, they were cornered, surrounded in a castle, with only a handful of men left. As Yoshitsune, defeated, retired to commit seppuku, the honorable suicide of a samurai, he asked Benkei for one last thing, to hold the bridge to the castle and give him time. Benkei did more than hold it. He became a fortress of one. He stood on that bridge, a giant against an army, and slaughtered every soldier who dared to approach. It is said he killed over 300 trained samurai by himself. The enemy, terrified to get close, changed tactics. They fell back and unleashed a storm of arrows. The arrows rained down, piercing the giant's armor and flesh, but Benkei did not fall. He remained standing, motionless, a silent, bloody guardian covered in a forest of arrows. The soldiers, unnerved by the eerie sight, stopped firing. It was a long, terrifying silence. Cautiously they approached. They prodded the giant figure, only to find that the great warrior monk Benkei was already dead. He had died on his feet, a final, impossible act of loyalty. A warrior to the very end, his body refusing to dishonor his master even in death. So what was he? A demon? A hero? A monster? Or was he simply a man so loyal he could bend the rules of life and death itself? The story of Benkei shows us that sometimes the most fearsome monsters hide the most human hearts. And the greatest legends are not about how a hero lives, but how they choose to die. What do you think of Benkei's story? Let me know. What if a king, raised in the mountains, could build an empire that defied the most powerful forces of his time, using shadows and whispers as his primary weapons? This isn't a fantasy tale. This is the story of a man who became a legend, a force of nature carved from the very rock of the Sayadri Mountains. A king who turned guerrilla warfare into an art form and whose spies were said to be the mountains themselves, watching and listening. This is the untold story of Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Our story begins not in a grand palace, but in the rugged hills of the Deccan. Imagine a teenager, barely old enough to rule, standing before a sacred idol, his hand on his sword. This wasn't just any teenager. This was Shivaji, and the oath he took that day wasn't just a promise. It was a spark of Swaraj self-rule. It was a vision that many considered impossible, a dream whispered among a people long accustomed to foreign dominion. Was it youthful rebellion, or was it something more? Legends say it was a divinely inspired mission, a calling to restore dignity and freedom to his land. And then there's the sword. Mavani, a name that echoes with power. The stories surrounding this blade are as mysterious as the man who wielded it. Some say it was a gift from the goddess Bhavani herself, a divine instrument for a divine purpose. Others whisper that it was forged in a celestial fire. While historians debate its exact origin, one thing is certain. In Shivaji's hands, the Bhavani sword became more than just steel. It was a symbol of hope, a flash of lightning that cut through the darkness of oppression, representing the righteous fury of a people determined to be free. This sword and the oath it sealed were the first steps on a path that would change the course of Indian history forever. To the mighty Mughal and Adil Shahi empires, he was an enigma, a phantom. They called him the mountain rat, a term meant to belittle him, but it inadvertently captured the essence of his dealings. Shivaji wasn't a rat to be trapped. He was the ghost of the Sahyadri Mountains. He didn't fight battles. He orchestrated them. His art of war was Genomikava, a fluid, unpredictable style of guerrilla warfare that turned the very landscape greatest ally. His soldiers, all were men born as rugged and resilient as home, appear from nowhere and vanish into the enemy. This wasn't just about ambushes and raids. It was a psychological masterpiece. Shivaji understood that fear was a more potent weapon than any cannon. His campaigns were designed to keep his larger, more powerful enemies constantly off balance, guessing, and terrified of the shadows. The mountains weren't just his refuge. They were his fortress, and his weapon. He knew every secret path, every hidden cave, every vantage point, while his enemies lumbered through treacherous valleys with their heavy armies. Shivaji and his men moved like the wind, using the terrain to their advantage, making the impossible possible. But how did he know where to strike? How did he anticipate every move his enemies made? The answer lies in one of the most sophisticated intelligence networks of its time, an organization so effective it felt almost supernatural. Shivaji's spies were the unseen eyes and ears of his kingdom. They were not just soldiers in disguise. They were masters of deception, blending into every level of society. They were merchants in bustling markets, holy men in temples, court performers, and even servants in the enemy's own palaces. They gathered information not just on troop movements, but on the morale of the enemy, the gossip in the court, the personal habits of commanders. And this network was his true secret weapon. It allowed him to be proactive, not reactive. He didn't just respond to threats. He neutralized them before they could even materialize. Information flowed back to him through a complex system of runners, coded messages, and secret signals, turning the vast, wild landscape into a living, breathing communication grid. His enemies thought they were fighting an army of men. In reality, they were fighting an army of information. This web of intelligence is what allowed for his most daring and legendary feats, like the stealthy capture of supposedly impregnable forts. Conquering a fort in the 17th century was a monumental task. It meant long sieges, massive casualties, and a huge drain on resources. But for Shivaji, it was a different game. He didn't just see forts as stone and mortar. He saw them as puzzles, each with a unique solution. And his key to solving these puzzles was often stealth, not brute force. Take the legendary capture of Synagogue. The fort was considered unconquerable, perched atop a sheer cliff. A conventional assault was suicide. So Shivaji's trusted general, Sanada Malasare, did the unthinkable. Under the cover of darkness, he and a small band of commandos used trained monitor lizards, or gorpids, with ropes tied to them to scale the vertical rock face, surprising the garrison from within. It was a high-risk, high-reward mission that became the stuff of folklore. Then there was the capture of Panhala Fort. Trapped and outnumbered, Shivaji executed one of the greatest escapes in military history. But escaping wasn't enough. He later recaptured that same fort, not with a massive army, but with a small group of just 60 chosen men who infiltrated the fort by memorizing its layout and guard patterns. These weren't just military victories. They were masterclasses in strategy, courage, and audacity. He proved that it wasn't the size of the army that mattered, but the sharpness of the mind behind it. But the story of Shivaji Maharaja isn't just one of battles and espionage. To focus only on his military genius is to miss the true scale of his vision.
He wasn't just a warrior, he was a nation builder, a visionary king whose administrative policies were centuries ahead of his time. While his contemporaries were focused on conquest and plunder, Shivaji was laying the foundation for a sustainable, just, and efficient state. He established a cabinet of 8 ministers, the Ashtapradhan Mandal, each responsible for a specific portfolio, from finance to foreign affairs. This wasn't a court of flattering nobles. It was a merit-based system of governance, a functioning bureaucracy designed for the welfare of the people. He reformed the land revenue system, ensuring that taxes were fair and that farmers were protected from exploitation by corrupt landlords. He understood that a strong economy was the bedrock of a strong kingdom. His administration focused on promoting trade, protecting merchants, and ensuring that the wealth of the kingdom circulated for the benefit of its citizens, not just a select few. This focus on good governance and public welfare is what truly set him apart. He wasn't just fighting for territory. He was fighting for the idea of a kingdom that belonged to its people. Perhaps one of his most groundbreaking and least known achievements was the creation of the first modern Indian Navy. In an age where Indian rulers largely ignored the seas, leaving them to European powers, Shivaji saw things differently. He understood a fundamental truth. He who controls the sea controls the trade and ultimately controls the land. He couldn't challenge the Mughals on the vast northern plains, but he could dominate the Konkan coast. He began building his own ships, small, fast, and agile vessels perfect for the coastal waters. He established naval bases and coastal forts, creating a maritime shield for his burgeoning empire. This navy wasn't just for defense, it was an offensive force. It protected Maratha merchant ships, challenged the naval supremacy of the Portuguese, the English and the Siddhis of Janjira, and collected taxes from trading vessels. It was a bold and audacious move that demonstrated his incredible foresight. He was thinking in terms of strategic depth and economic control at a time when most were thinking only of land battles. This creation of a powerful indigenous navy was not just a military innovation. It was a declaration of sovereignty over the sea as well as the land. Even more remarkable were his social policies. In an era marked by religious strife and persecution, Shivaji built his kingdom on a foundation of secularism and tolerance. His army was a true meritocracy. He had numerous Muslim soldiers and commanders in high-ranking positions. His most trusted naval admiral, Daulat Khan, and his chief of artillery, Ibrahim Khan, were Muslims. His personal secretary was a Muslim. He respected all faiths, gave grants to temples, mosques, and Sufi shrines alike, and had strict orders that during raids, holy books of any religion were to be treated with respect and returned to their followers. He was also a champion of women's honor. His soldiers were under strict command not to harm women or children, even those of the enemy. There are famous accounts of him personally ensuring the safe and honorable return of captured women to their families. In the 17th century, these were not just progressive policies. They were revolutionary. They showed that Shivaji's vision of Swaraj wasn't for one community or one religion. It was a vision of a just and humane society where every individual, regardless of their background, could live with dignity and security. This moral code was the true strength of his kingdom. So, who was Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaja? He was more than a king, more than a warrior. He was the mountain king, a force of nature who carved an empire out of sheer will and brilliant strategy. He was the ghost of the Sayadras, whose mastery of guerrilla warfare and intelligence turned his enemies' strength into their weakness. He was a visionary administrator, a pioneer who built a modern navy and championed policies of justice and tolerance that were centuries ahead of his time. His legacy is not just in the forts that still stand sentinel on the mountaintops, or in the ballads that sing of his deeds. His legacy is in the idea of Swaraj, the idea that with courage, intelligence, and an unwavering vision, even the most impossible dreams can be realized. He wasn't just fighting against empires. He was fighting for a principle. He proved that true power doesn't come from the size of your army.
but from the spirit of your people and the justice of your cause. His story is a powerful reminder that sometimes the greatest empires are built not with stone and steel, but with shadows, whispers, and an unbreakable will. That's the hidden side of this incredible historical figure. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What part of his story fascinates you the most? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and if you enjoyed this journey into history, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this journey, let me know down in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this journey into history, don't forget to like and subscribe for more. Like and subscribe.